genome can therefore be interrogated at many different time levels. It can supply answers that reach back more than 50,000 years to the genetic Adam, a man whose Y chromosome is carried by all men now alive. Or it can be queried about the events of a mere couple of centuries ago, such as whether Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, had a secret family with his slave mistress, Sally Hemings. From Adam to Jefferson, the genome is helping researchers create a new and far more detailed picture of human evolution, human nature, and history. From the great darkness, a surprisingly full narrative is emerging. This new narrative of the human past rests on a solid foundation laid by paleoanthropologists, archaeologists, anthropologists, and many other specialists. It can be called new in the sense that genetic information now contributes to each of these traditional disciplines and is beginning to draw them together. This book describes those aspects of human evolution, nature, and prehistory that have been illumined by genetic discoveries of the last few years. Readers who do not follow these fields closely may be surprised at the richness of the information in the new narrative. There exists no video of how apes slowly morphed into people, but a sequence of the salient events can, for the most part, be reconstructed. There is no map that records the dispersal of the new humans from their ancestral homeland, but researchers can now follow the path they took out of Africa and their migrations through the world outside. It's even possible to reconstruct some of the social institutions that emerged as people made the transition from a nomadic way of life based on hunting and gathering to today's complex societies. Information from the genome has helped tell paleoanthropologists when humans lost their body hair and when they gained the power of speech. It has clarified for archaeologists their long quandary as to whether Neanderthals and modern humans peacefully interbred with each other or fought until the Neanderthals' extinction. It has furnished anthropology with information about human adaptation to cultural practices like cattle herding and cannibalism. The cascade of DNA data is even benefiting historical linguistics, though indirectly, as biologists apply the tree-building methods developed for gene genealogies to reconstructing the evolution of language. On the critical question of the ancestral human population, the last group from which everyone alive today is descended, the techniques of paleoanthropology and archaeology are powerless to say anything about a people that has vanished without a trace. But geneticists, by rummaging around in the genome's rich attic, can fill in all kinds of unexpected detail. They can estimate how large the ancestral population was. They can say where in Africa it probably lived. They can put a date, though a rough one, on when language emerged. They can even infer, in one instance, what the first language sounded like. The first tailored clothes. Few findings better illustrate geneticists' ability to cast light into surprising corners of the human past than a recent estimate of the date that people first sewed their own clothes. Early humans may have used loose animal skins for millions of years, worn perhaps like a cape against the cold, but fabricated garments were a more recent invention. Archaeologists have never been able to determine when clothes were first worn, because both the materials and the bone needles used to sew them are highly perishable. In the fall of 1999, Mark Stone King's son came home from school in Leipzig, Germany, with a note warning that a classmate had a case of head lice. Stone King, an American researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, read it as carefully as would any anxious parent. But as a geneticist long interested in human origins, his attention was drawn to a reassurance in the school note that lice cannot survive longer than 24 hours away from the warmth of the human body. I thought, if that was true, then lice must have been spread around the world by human migrations, he says. Stone King figured that if he could prove this were so, he would have discovered an independent confirmation of the migration pattern implied by human DNA. But after a few hours of library research, he realized that the lice might hold in their DNA an even more interesting fact: the date when humans first wore clothing. The compilers of the Book of Genesis were so exercised by the question of human nakedness that they included not just one, but two accounts of how people came to seek modesty in clothing. In the first, Adam and Eve sewed themselves aprons of fig leaves after realizing their state of undress. In the second, the Creator himself tailored the errant pair coats of skins before expelling them into the world beyond Eden. Neither account gives due weight to the other interested party in the story of human clothing, the louse. Once, after all, in the days when human forebears were fully covered with hair, just like any other ape or monkey, the louse must have ranged freely from head to toe. When humans lost their body hair, the louse's domain shrank, confining it to the lonely island of hair that tufts absurdly from the human head. But it patiently bided its time, and many millennia later, when people started to wear clothes, the head louse seized the chance to regain its lost territory by evolving a new variety, the body louse, that could live in clothing. The head and body louse closely resemble each other, except the body louse is larger and has claws specialized for grasping material, not shafts of hair. Stone King realized that he could date the invention of clothing if he could only figure out from variations in lice DNA the time at which the body louse began to evolve from the head louse. He collected head and body lice from the citizens of 12 countries around the world, from Ethiopia to Ecuador to New Guinea. He analyzed all the variations in a small segment of each head and body louse's genetic material, and arranged each population's lice in a family tree. Knowing the rate at which variations accumulate on DNA over the centuries, he could then calculate the dates of the various forks or branch points in the tree. The branch point at which the body louse first evolved from the head louse turned out to be around 72,000 years ago, give or take several thousand years either way. Assuming the body louse evolved almost immediately after its new niche was available to it, then people first addressed their nakedness only in the most recent stage of their evolutionary history. It was about this time, or a few thousand years later, that people perfected language and broke out of Africa to colonize the rest of the world. It seems they had decided to get dressed for the occasion. From Adam to Jefferson. Genetics, with its fresh new insights into the human past, ranges across many other academic territories. At least 7 traditional disciplines bear on the human past. Paleoanthropologists, the students of fossil human remains, have reconstructed the major steps by which the human lineage branched off from apes 5 million years ago, and by 100,000 years ago had morphed into humans who were anatomically, though not behaviorally, similar to people of today. Archaeologists have picked up the story from there, establishing the foundation of dates and basic facts on which other specialists seek to reconstruct various aspects of past human behavior. Population geneticists have tracked the migration of human populations around the world. Their early analyses were based on differences in human proteins, but the emphasis has now switched to DNA, a more convenient and informative source. Historical linguists have traced back the family tree of human languages, reconstructing vanished tongues, such as Proto-Indo-European, the inferred ancestral tongue of many languages spoken in Europe, Iran, and India. Primatologists, after many years of patient observation, have gained a deep understanding of how chimpanzee and bonobo societies work. This achievement provides insights into the social organization of the primates from which both chimps and people evolved. Since